Hello and welcome to the Coaches Show on SportsNetUSA.net. My name is Ryan Osborn, joined by Hector Panduro. We have ourselves a little bit of a special edition of the Coaches Show, if you will. 2018, special year for the Fullerton College Hornet Football season. Hector, when you look at Fullerton College and how this entire football team had so many expectations going into this year, yet they were able to perform well.
Well, Ryan, like you said, we have so many expectations for this team this year. We have a brand new quarterback, Gresh Jensen, coming into the season with the weight of the whole team on his back. Also, he has a new defensive line that he has to work with as well, with Joey Noble.
When you look at Joey Noble, a guy who played a little bit last year, was in on that championship team, but was looked at to become a star this year, and that's something that he did. 12.5 sacks that he recorded all season long. He turned into a beast. He went from a supporting role behind Montre Bonner and then became a beast on his own and really highlighted his own talents this year.
And we're going to go through some clips right now in a little bit to look at all of these impressive plays done by Joey Noble.
When you look at Fullerton College, earlier we mentioned those expectations. Now we have to explain to you why. Fullerton College over the last 2 years, 2 straight national championships. 2016, they go 12-1 en route to a state title. Last year, 13-0, again a state championship under their belts. Now when they look at the beginning of this year, it's something that they needed to make a statement on in the first game against Golden West.
And Ryan, maybe we say that game with Golden West was a little difficult for them, for Fullerton College.
And you're going to see why in just a couple of moments. Let's get right to the 2018 season recap right here on the Coaches Show. So we send it right out to Golden West. That's when Infant Eckford starts off the game for Fullerton College with a touchdown run. Not on that one, but on the ensuing play. But it would be all Golden West in the first and second quarters. Bo Kalbacher immediately goes into the air on his first drive and gets a deep touchdown pass to Ben Ratzliff. And that made it 7-6. Fullerton up by just 1. Entering the second quarter, Bo Kalbacher would go to the well once again, Hector.
Yep, once again, like you said, Ryan, passing to Ratzliff right in the corner for that touchdown.
And just enough of a toe tap there. I mean, as you mentioned, it's the absolute corner. And yet he's able to have the body control to make sure he taps his right foot. And he gets a touchdown. Just the third deficit in the last 2 years combined for Fullerton. 13-7 score. Golden West on top. Now Devin Moore rushes it over towards the left-hand side. He's into the end zone. Fullerton would tie it off of the PAT. Now here's where Fullerton gets a little lucky here, Hector. Zach Smith rolls over to his right. It goes in and out of the arms of a Rustler defender. No interception, but the ever-present Robert Downs III. You're going to hear a lot more from him in this highlight package as he gets his first touchdown of the year.
And from Robert Downs III, we go to Corey Lewis with an amazing field goal, putting the Hornets 23-13 against these Rustlers.
It was one of the longer field goals that he would have all season long. Corey Lewis pegs that one right down the middle. As you said, Jawan Johnson is up next. 88-yard touchdown strike. It was one of the longest plays from scrimmage that Fullerton had in the last 4 years combined. You look at that separation speed that he's able to get on that right-hand sideline, and he gives Fullerton an extended 30-13 lead.
And then you have over here again, Kalbacher with another amazing pass to Ratzliff, a 32-yard touchdown pass, putting the Rustlers 30-19.
As you see there, the Golden West crowd loved it. They had their arms in the air. They were ready to go. 30-19. They got 6 points on it. They tried to go for 2. Didn't work. Now on the ensuing possession for Golden West to start off the fourth quarter. Ben Ratzliff with a beautifully tossed air ball to the left-hand side. This time, it didn't catch rim. It caught the hands of David Atencio. And Atencio would bring it to a one-score game. That would be the final score in this ball game. 30-27, a one-score game.
And these Hornets, they didn't want these Rustlers to come back. They wanted to keep them there with that scoring point.
And you mentioned that, I mean, the defense of Fullerton College had to hang on in the final 4 or in the final quarter of play. It was a tough one for Fullerton, but you want to speak about tough ones that very next week against RCC. They play the #1 team in the country at the time, and they beat them 34-33. Fullerton with a victory at Riverside, and it switches us over to one of the most historic matchups in all of Southern California.
Yeah, the key of the county game.
That key to the county game between Santa Ana and Fullerton started off oh so well for the Hornets. They got a team touchdown, followed it up with a Joey Noble safety, and Gresh Jensen says we're going to lay it on thicker than syrup here as they move it to Markel Raymond, who would have 3 touchdown catches in this game alone. And you ask yourself, well, that's a lot for the entirety of the football game. No, that's within the first 2 quarters.
Yeah, and then you see over here again another Markel Raymond, but this time a 29-yard touchdown.
And it's laid on the hands of Quinn Commons. So he ended up getting 2 touchdown passes from 2 different quarterbacks, and yet it still works. Now the defense for Fullerton College and special teams says we want to get in on this party. Let's get ourselves a block and a touchdown as well, and Fullerton College extends their lead. It was 29-0 prior to the block. It made it 35. And they would end up tacking on an extra point. That's where we stay with special teams.
And then you see it again here with the special teams with Sean North with a punt return, putting it a 43-0 touchdown.
And 43-0, that's not at the end of 4 quarters of play. That's at the end of 12 and a half minutes that Fullerton had the football in the first 2 quarters. Fullerton tries to get a little tricky, and it works. Markel Raymond, that's his 3rd touchdown pass of the afternoon, and that was just 17 minutes played in this ballgame. That's it. And Fullerton was up 49-0 at that point in the football game. We're just going to switch it to the 4th quarter where Fullerton started off with their final score of the afternoon. It'd make it 85-0, the most lopsided victory for either side in that entire rivalry's history. Going from an old rivalry to essentially a new one, an unknown team in Southwestern moving up from the American Division into the National. They look to shock the Hornets. DeAndre Daniels with a little, oop, I'm going to give you the knee. No, wait, I'm taking it back. Going into the end zone, he ends up giving his team a 7-0 lead, and Southwestern was taking it to Fullerton College in the first quarter. Take a look at these offensive numbers here, Hector. 344 yards of total offense for Fullerton College. How many for Southwestern? 119. 71 yards passing total over the game.
And Fullerton with 259?
259. And here's a little bit of that. That chunk of change goes from Gresh Jensen over to Sean North, and that's a touchdown for him. He'd continue with the football and says, this time I want to take it myself. I see a lane, and he'll run it in for a 14-7 lead.
See, but that's not all. Then you have Southwestern come back with Daniels with a touchdown, bringing them closer to beating Fullerton.
And you see it here. DeAndre Daniels starts off in the back there. He ends up getting the handoff, powering his way through 2 different Fullerton defenders, and now it's just a 1-score game. It was 17-14, as you see there. DeAndre Daniels with 12-12 left to go in the 4th quarter. Fullerton would have to rely on their defense to bail them out. They couldn't score after that. The last time that they got on the board was a Corey Lewis 27-yard field goal. That was with 5:46 left to go in the 3rd, and they couldn't get on the board again. As you see there, 2 points in the 4th quarter total. That was mainly because their defense, as you'll see in just a couple of seconds, bailed them out. They got a team safety, and that's what clinched it because Southwestern was looking to drive.
And isn't this a new defense for Fullerton? This is a brand new defense that they have to work with.
I mean, essentially a brand new one because you look at it, Joey Noble played a little bit last year but didn't get big-time minutes. This year he would get big minutes for Fullerton, and he'd show up big time. One of them being that team safety to end the game against Southwestern. We switch it very quickly over to Ventura. We started in the 4th quarter with under 5 minutes to play. Dennis Houston with a touchdown from Gresh Jensen, as you see it on the replay. It's thrown over towards the right-hand side. Dennis Houston with some nice body control to twist his way around and make the reception. Now Fullerton needed good field position. Who did they turn to?
Robert Downs III.
Robert Downs III. He ends up getting that one on special teams. A punt return goes down the right-hand side. He ends up picking up a total of 36 yards on that return, and he brings Fullerton closer. Right around midfield. That's where J.R. Moore says, midfield? Psh, that's easy street. Left-hand side of the offense. He takes it into the end zone, to the house, and Fullerton takes a win over Ventura out of the jaws of defeat. Ventura was the number 1 rated team in the country entering the football game and entering the season. favored over the Hornets, and Fullerton with a 33-28 victory. That brings us to an X Factor game against Palomar that Fullerton needed to perform well against. Well, Palomar decided to come right out, and on their first offensive possession, Connor Curry runs it in from 46 yards out. And Palomar starts off the game scoring.
And then you have Markel Raymond saying, I see you, Palomar. I see what you did. He comes in with a 26-yard catch touchdown, tying this game.
Just moments ago, we talked about Robert Downs III, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we haven't talked about him enough. Robert Downs III takes that one at the 32-yard line. He'd end up getting a big return on that left-hand side. He already passed 4 defenders there, 5 defenders by the end of his run. That wouldn't be the last time you hear from him because he'd finish with 2 more touchdown receptions in addition to that return. We'll get to those in a little bit. For right now, Xavier Green, you see the work that he put in on that right-hand side to get around the cornerback, and he goes in to the end zone with a touchdown reception.
And then you have a very, very impressive interception here by Troy LaFridge. Look at that. Bounced right off one of the players. Boom. Takes off running with that ball.
And it's a lucky deflection, but Fullerton will take it on the defensive side. It's an interception into the end zone, another touchdown for Fullerton College. Just a little bit earlier in the year, we had heard that the defensive backs weren't performing as well as they should have from someone on the broadcast. Well, now Gresh Jensen decides that he wants the offense to continue its role. He ends up sending this one over towards the left-hand side. Jawan Johnson gets a touchdown, and Fullerton is still going on the offensive side of the football. Now this one's on the right-hand side. Kari Henley says, okay, if everyone's getting a slice of pizza, I want in. No one's going to leave me out here. As he gets an interception, that gives Fullerton good field position. Things lighted up just a little bit more in the third quarter for Fullerton. Quinn Commons looking for the one and only Robert Downs III. It's impressive how he completes his stride to this football, brings it in for a 59-yard score.
But then you have Palomar coming in this next one with a 83-yard return, putting Palomar closer to getting more points on that board.
And that was immediately following the touchdown catch by Robert Downs III. So exactly. It's not like they had a little bit of time to kind of develop this. No. It was right afterwards, and they were able to quell a little bit of momentum. They got it down to the 1-yard line. That's when Devion Sneed would bring it in, more accurately punch it in from the 1-yard line, and that would be a touchdown for Palomar. They need another score.
And not only Sneed, but then you also have Mark Meter with a 28-yard pass touchdown saying, hey, guys, I want part of this too.
The officials, as you see there, would initially say he was out of bounds at the 1-yard line. They'd reconfer and say that he was in, give him the touchdown. Now what you're looking at is a 2-point conversion by Palomar, and they were successful in doing so. Devion Sneed runs it in, and now you're looking at 2 impressive individual plays coming up.
Right now, it's the Logan Gamble one, making the stunning 31-yard catch, giving hope for Palomar. They still have hope because of this.
You know, there is one person that loves to quench hope.
Oh, I know
on the offensive side of the football.
And we all know who that is.
You know who he is?
Yes, we
He's
do.
Robert Downs III. One of the most explosive plays you'll see in the community college level ever. Catches that at his foot and turns around and scores. Passes 4 different defenders on his way to the end zone. It's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Fullerton takes home a victory on the clinching touchdown. Let's switch it up. Let's go to the Cerritos game. That was the very next one on the schedule where Gresh Jensen says, you know what? I've got such a good fake here. I'm going to take out the cameraman en route to the end zone as well. 23 yards out. He starts off the scoring for the Hornets.
And then from there, we go to Jawan Johnson with a diving catch saying, hey, I want part of this too.
Everyone was getting into it on the offensive side of the football in the first half. I mean, by the time that we reached 7 minutes in the second quarter, Fullerton was up big, and this is one of the plays. You look at Jared Moore going right into contact, not afraid to lay a body on someone, takes it all the way down towards the 4-yard line. Fullerton was going to get a score coming up that you'll see in just a couple of moments. These Hornets in the first half against Cerritos looked great.
Yeah, as you see right here, Jensen, again, look at that, with another tuck, fooling the cameraman again. No one saw that coming.
And Jensen, I mean, he really developed that throughout the remainder of the season. He developed that fake, and it worked for him. Etienne Valele ended up getting the first score for Cerritos. That came with 7:52 left on the clock in the second quarter. And then they started to work the Hornets a little, starting off in the third. Gresh Jensen gets hit from behind as he lets go of that football, gets intercepted as well on the right side of the field. Jensen would get back up, and he would end up getting the force out of bounds. But Fullerton got shut out in the second half, and you're going to see it. There were no offensive highlights for the Hornets to end off this football game.
And right now, we just saw Carl Odom with a touchdown from Isaiah Bravo, putting the Cerritos Falcons 35-17.
Then it's Javon Tucker, right-hand side. He's got a lot of speed, gets around the Fullerton defense, takes it all the way down to the opposing 40-yard line. However, Cerritos doesn't score on that possession, and they would take them all the way down to 20 seconds remaining in the football game before they could get back into the end zone. You wonder to yourself, if they had 10 more minutes of football game, what would that game have looked like? Well, Fullerton doesn't really have to play that what-if game. They come away with the victory after that Odom touchdown again, and it would end up Fullerton going to a total of 7-0 that year, or 7-0 this year, not that year, this year. Cerritos, after that, we check out Jake Dunninway and company, who came up to Yorba Linda and immediately got punched in the face by the one and only Xavier Steele. Steele takes an interception, takes it all the way to the house on the left-hand side. Fullerton with 2 straight scores to start off. It was 10-0 Fullerton just 6 minutes into that football game.
This game, you see a bunch of speed in all these players. Right now, we're going to see, is it Jay Brown with a block and return?
Troy LaFridge gets the block. Jay Brown gets the pickup. And Jay Brown with a little fancy footwork there. Gets around the kicker, waits for his blockers. He has trust in his other guys to say, you know what? I know I have the speed to get to the end zone on my own. I'm going to wait for you guys to set up your blocks. That ends the first quarter. Jay Brown looking good, along with that entire defensive backing core for the Hornets. When you look at Fullerton College, a lot of guys impressed us overall. One guy in particular that we're going to show right here, Joey Noble. Just check out the way that he was able to manhandle opponents all season long, specifically in that game against San Diego Mesa. At one point, he had 3 straight sacks and QB hits. He disrupted San Diego Mesa's entire offense on one entire series. It was all Joey Noble for the Fullerton College Hornets. Quinn Commons enters the football game, immediately leaves it for Jawan Johnson. We've seen Jawan Johnson's speed already in this season highlight package. Well, he shows it again there. Just a quick little dive on the right-hand side, and he would find himself with 6.
See, but San Diego Mesa doesn't stay quiet. They come back with Isaiah Williams with a 40-yard touchdown. Also trying to show some speed there.
And they were able to do so. I mean, that was their first score of the game. Fullerton wasn't expecting that long bomb on that left-hand side, and the defensive backing core just wasn't able to get to it in time. Well, that's when Jake Dunninway says, well, if you can't guard the air, let's try and see if you can coverage up the rushing attempt here by Tyler Tuttle. And Tyler Tutt ends up getting into the end zone. 28 yards out, it's 24-14. Now it's starting to get vibes of the Cerritos game.
And then we have Fullerton Hornets coming back and stinging again with an amazing run by Tim Allen, a 64-yard.
We talked to Tim Allen last year. He said he likes to do 2 things with the football, catch it and run with it. He does both of those on that play. We mentioned the special teams earlier from Fullerton, especially in that game against Palomar and in that game against Ventura. Well, Donald Hayes, who didn't play too much, initially muffs that punt, brings it back into his arms, and says, I'm going to make the most of my playing time. Gets past big old number 77 right there, works his way past the sideline, stays in bounds past the kicker and into the end zone. Donald Hayes with a big return for a touchdown. That was almost the icing on the cake for Fullerton College as they'd get a comfortable lead.
But then you go back and make it even more comfortable. You got Xavier Steele with an 86-yard touchdown return right now.
You see Jake Dunninway patrolling that right-hand side, and Xavier Steele steps right in front of it. Too easy, it almost looked like. I mean, me coming from a hockey background, you see that goalie just nonchalantly going after it. That was Xavier Steele right there. He says, I'm going to pick this off with ease. Step right in front of it, and that's it. That's the ball game. Fullerton with a big victory. They go over to El Camino, one of the two teams that many people said had a chance at the conference crown over top of Fullerton this year, both them and Mount Sac. Well, Fullerton going out to El Camino, it was no contest. Fullerton College lays down 550 yards of total offense, and the Hornets just rolled in that one. At one point, it was almost a snooze fest in the second half. Fullerton College with a commanding victory. That brought us to the big one. Game number 10, the one circled on the calendar by many. These two teams met in the playoffs 5 years ago, with Mount Sac bouncing out the Hornets en route to a state title. Well, speaking of bouncing out, that's exactly what Jackson does. Chris Jackson on that right-hand side bounces to the outside and gets a game-opening touchdown. People hadn't even settled into their seats yet, and Fullerton was down 6-0.
But then you have Fullerton come back with a 28-yard run by Gresh Jensen, leading them into a touchdown.
And there's Gresh Jensen. We mentioned the fake earlier, right?
Yeah.
This time the cameraman knew it was coming because it's Gresh Jensen. Now you have to expect it, and he runs it in himself. After that Jensen run, it would end up being Dennis Houston, who ends up getting an end around there from Quinn Commons. He turns around towards the left-hand side from just under, or we'll say just inside the 5-yard line. Dennis Houston into the end zone. It's a touchdown for the Hornets. Quinn Commons back into the football game. He would keep it himself this time. He wants the end zone, just a little piece, and he's got the score again. So Fullerton taking a lead over top of Mount Sac. It was 21-6, under 3 to go in the first.
But then you have Malaki Thompson with a 4-yard touchdown run coming back and fighting against the Hornets. But he might have been a little theater major because, oh my God.
He's doing everything he can to give his team an advantage. But you want to talk about a performance from a theater major? Well, here's a performance for you right here. Peter Kazibwe anticipating that pass and says, I'm going to waltz my way into the end zone and keep everyone entertained as well with the celebration. A 6'2" linebacker with the hands and speed of Peter Kazibwe. That is an enigma, and Fullerton would bring on a 2-point conversion on the other side as well. So it's 21, or make it 29-13 in favor of the Hornets over top of Mount Sac at that point.
And then we have Avenger over here with a with a touchdown run, bringing the Hornets back.
And that's Avenger with an eye right there. Lucky getting himself into it. But Dylan Flanagan trying to fight for the Mounties. The Mounties trying their best to get back into this football game. They do get the touchdown there on the sneak. Now Gresh Jensen and the Fullerton Hornet offense tried to bury it completely. Jawan Johnson, the speed, the style, and the skill to dazzle his way on that left-hand sideline. That would basically be the dagger in this one, as Fullerton with Quinn Commons would settle it with a Jared Moore touchdown, and Fullerton College would take home a victory. You're going to see a Mount Sac highlight in a second, but Fullerton would end up with 53 points in that game.
And this highlight right here, you see Massey with a 27-yard touchdown, trying to bring the Mount Sac Mounties back.
And they got ever so close with Dylan Flanagan getting back into it. That would make it 53-36, and then you're going to see a Jacob Henney touchdown from 7 yards out. That was Flanagan over towards the left-hand side. Henney, the tight end, great positioning, great catch, but that would be as close as the Mounties would get. They would try and drive with under 2.5 to play in the fourth quarter. Dylan Flanagan decides to put it into the air, a 2-year starter. Perfect ending to his Fullerton College career. Jay Brown with an interception. He looks at that sunset and says, you know what? That's some great sunset to ride into.
So an undefeated season for Fullerton College. It's their second in 2 years. Last year 13-0, this year 10-0. Hector, when you look at those highlights that we were able to edit down and take a look at, what impressed you the most?
The most impressive highlight to me was the one by Peter Kazibwe with that 41-yard interception.
And the way that he gets that, too. He ends up grabbing it on that far sideline. The speed that he has as a linebacker to get to the end zone is impressive.
It's very impressive, especially for a linebacker his size. Just even shocked the opposing team.
6'2", Peter Kazibwe stands. He has one of the better plays that we see all season. Another guy who had a big-time play that really impressed everyone, Robert Downs III. One of the more impressive, explosive plays that you will see in community college football. He does that against Palomar.
And you mentioned explosive play. He was able to pick up the ball from his toes and take off with that.
beating 4 different defenders en route to the end zone, no less. So Robert Downs III, Peter Kazibwe, big time. We mentioned Joey Noble at the start. This is a guy in Joey Noble, 12.5 sacks that we mentioned, but you also have to look at his impact on games. In that game against San Diego Mesa, he took over. It was the Joey Noble show at one point. He ruined an entire offensive series for Jake Dunninway and that entire San Diego Mesa offense. He takes over that game. Fullerton wins it, stays undefeated. He was one of the highlights of this entire season as well. Hector, you look at Fullerton, they remain undefeated. 10-0 this year, the 29-game winning streak stays alive. For Hector Panduro, I am Ryan Osborn. This has been a special edition of The Coaches Show, 2018 Fullerton College Football on The Coaches Show on SportsNetUSA.net.